What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a different kind of video. We're out here on the second channel, and I kind of figured I wanted to use this channel as a channel where I'd upload videos that I wouldn't necessarily put on my main channel. So I never meant for this to be just a vlog channel or just a stream highlights channel, but I kind of want this channel to just have whatever the hell I want to post on it. And in particular, one thing I want to do is make videos addressing a lot of the common comments that I get, whether it be on live streams or videos or really anything like that. And one thing that I wanted to make a video about today, is I get asked very often how I quit X drug or how I managed to stop doing whatever drug. And I figured it would be kind of a boring video if I just made like a how to quit that shit, because there really is no how to. But instead I wanted to talk about some of the drugs that I've had a hard time quitting. Some of the shit that I've been unable to quit entirely, because there's quite a few that are a lot more difficult than others. Now, before we dive into the video, I do want to say real quick, make sure to go check out the new merch at goblin420.com. We've got some new stuff coming later this month. And also, let me know in the comments below if you guys want more kind of stuff like this on this channel. I hope you guys do enjoy this one. Drop a like if you do. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, as a lot of you guys know, I've gone through a lot of different phases in my life where I do many different drugs. The kind of term for people like myself is a polyaddict, right? Basically means I'll do whatever the fuck I can get my hands on. But I personally feel that everyone's just kind of a different drug addict. Like, if you're a drug addict, it's like a spectrum, Like a meth head might not be just a meth head. I'm not just a stoner. I'm also not just into anything. And usually that can be a good thing because it makes it a bit easier for me to stop doing things. However, when I stop doing things, I rarely actually quit and go sober. I usually just replace them with another drug. There's a few drugs that I've done that even, with being able to do that, I still could not get over easily. Even being able to replace them with whatever other drug I wanted to do, there's certain drugs that I've tried to quit and either couldn't or were just incredibly difficult. I think the first time that I ever really had any difficulty stopping any substance was probably Xanax, I'd say. Now, the thing with Xanax is it was probably one of the first substances I used, not just solely for fun or socially. It was a substance I used as like a crutch, and I feel like that makes it a lot harder to stop doing things sometimes. That isn't always the case with what makes it difficult to quit, but in particular, I kind of noticed a pattern where I would only start doing a lot of bars when things weren't going so well in my life, And I would do bars to kind of get that feeling of just not really giving a fuck about it. When I first tried to stop doing bars, I remember the first ever Xanax binge I had was when I was in like my junior year of high school. And I kind of replaced Xans with just a bunch of other drugs, a whole cocktail. So it wasn't that bad. However, fairly recently, I had another kind of Xanax binge. It was early last year. I'd say the first 6 months of 2021, I was just on a drug rampage. I wasn't in the best place during that time, but I was doing a lot of Xans, and I had a really difficult time quitting. I haven't popped a Xan in probably like 6 or 7 months now. It's been, I believe, until August. So, actually, no, 5 months. 5 months. Okay. All right. Well, fuck off. Either way, close enough. But Xanax is one that I always typically have a hard time with because it's one of those substances that as much as I talk down about it online, I don't think anyone can deny that it feels good. There's a reason that people do it, and it's because it feels fantastic. And I always found that I couldn't find many other substances that helped me almost self-medicate in a way and avoid problems, I guess you could say, as well as Xanax does. I mean, your house could burn down, and if you're a couple bars deep, you could probably stand there and watch and not feel too much, you know? Like, really, truly, Xanax just makes you an absolute ironclad, like, beast, you know? You're a zombie, yeah, but at the same time, you don't feel anything. So I guess a beast is not really the right term, more a zombie, but your brain is just solid metal. You don't feel anything, you know? So I always had a hard time quitting that, and recently the way I quit was just smoking more fucking weed. Weed is one thing, you know, I guess kind of segueing into the next part of this video, but weed is one of those substances that I don't really think I'm ever going to be able to quit, at least in the foreseeable future. For as long as I can remember during my drug use history, have always smoked. There's been brief periods where I smoked less. There's even been periods during my probation where I didn't really smoke at all. But never at a point in my life have I voluntarily said, yeah, I'm done smoking weed for good. Part of that, you know, yeah, I'm probably very mentally addicted to it. And I know that because I can't even do a tolerance break. Like, if I could get maybe a day or two into it, but after that, I get very irritable and very cranky. And weed is something that I just smoke all the time with everything I do. No matter where I go, what my plans are, I could just be taking a trip to Walmart, and I'll be like, this calls for a blunt. It's one of those things that I don't really think I'll ever be able to quit. Because, yeah, on one hand, I'm extremely mentally addicted to it, but also the way I kind of rationalize it in my head is, on the other hand, I've gone through so many other hard drug binges that weed is the least of my worries, you know? I've smoked crack, goddammit. So when I look at it from my perspective, I'm not that concerned about the weed. And I tell the same thing to my mom. My mom tells me all the time, she's like, oh, Nick, you gotta quit smoking weed. I want you to quit smoking one day. And I'm like, yo, I hate to break it to you. You're a great parent. That's just never happening one day in the history of mankind. You know, when I was younger, I feel like weed smoking was a little different for me. I didn't do it the same way I do it today. I did it when I was younger as a crutch to kind of not deal with reality, which is how I did a lot of drugs when I was younger. Some I did that with more than others, but in general, I would just take whatever drug came my way when I was younger because I didn't want to deal with the fact that I was flunking high school, my parents wanted to kick me out all the time, and weed was no exception to that. But now that I'm older, I found that I still can't quit weed because it's pretty much one of the only drugs that I still do for fun. Like, I genuinely enjoy it now. I don't smoke as much quantity-wise as I used to. It's not like I wake up and I start twitching if I don't wake and bake immediately. But I love getting stoned every day. I love learning about different strains and, you know, different forms of getting stoned and ways I can get baked out of my mind. It's fun, and I genuinely love it in a way that I've never really felt about any other substances. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, my view on weed has changed a lot, but the fact that I'm not able to quit has kind of always remained the same. I know a lot of people will be in the comments and they might be like, oh, Goblin, you could quit. You might not just realize it. No, I can't. And you know what? I embrace that. I'm pretty okay with that, quite honestly. Now, another substance, and probably the last substance that we'll touch on that I had a hard time quitting, was cocaine. Coke was a really tricky one for me because I feel like looking back at it, I should have known I was going to fall in love with blow at some point. I always, when I was younger, talked about how I didn't really like drugs that made me a zombie. I didn't like drugs that made me feel like I couldn't control myself or I was too stupid to get anything done. You know, I would occasionally do my bit of ketamine, and I would go through Xanax phases, which, yes, would make me a zombie, but I didn't do those for fun. Like I just mentioned, I self-medicated with those in a sense. Coke was something that I didn't really get super into until later in my life. When I was like 19 was the first time when I really started getting into blow, and my friends started doing it too. Because after we got out of high school was one of the first times we all kind of started having adult money. Cocaine money is more so what that means. Now, I fell in love with Coke a lot later than any other drugs that I did, or really binged it later than any other drugs that I did. Because As I got older, I kind of started focusing on YouTube stuff more. And I know it might seem like this doesn't take much work, which sometimes it doesn't. But it takes a lot of commitment and consistency doing live streams, videos, all that on top of each other, sponsor stuff, coordinating all that. I used to spend hours every day just looking for companies to ask, like, reach out and email them to sponsor me, you know? It was a lot of work that, like, you know, sometimes the average eye couldn't see, you know, like it was stuff that only I knew was going on that I had to do. And as I got older, I really loved Coke because it was something that made me get shit done. I felt like Superman on Coke. I was, you know, when it first got appealing to me, when I first started doing it, I just remember going home and doing lines at my desk and getting everything I wanted to get done so quickly. I'd bang out a video, I'd get my stream done, I'd send my emails, and I'd have so much extra time left in my day that I could get even more than I ever planned to get done, you know? I could just go crazy. And at first, I loved it. But over time, I got really, really hooked on it to the point where, like, I would wake up every day and I'd be so irritable. I'd be ready to snap on anybody. And I had such a hard time quitting it because it was probably the drug that I just couldn't replicate with anything else. Some people might say Adderall and stuff like that, but I hate that shit. I honestly do. I was prescribed a lot of it in high school and I never enjoyed taking it. And you know, I would only really abuse it when I had absolutely no other substances. But Coke was just something that was so different than everything else. It just made me feel unstoppable. And it gave me this almost sense of power, I guess you could say, and control that no other drug had ever given me. Now, because of this, I know not to try meth, because deep down, I'll probably fucking like it. But Coke is something that is dangerous, man, and I had the hardest time quitting it. I remember it got so bad, it got to the point where I would be up hearing things that weren't really there and like damn near hallucinating because I'd been up for 2.5 days straight doing lines, and I was cold sweating all over myself, tweaking out in my bed, staring at my ceiling. And when I first quit, I just remember the only thing I could ever think about was Coke. It didn't matter if I was stoned. It didn't matter if I did a different drug. It didn't matter if I was whatever I was doing. I would go to bed, and before I'd be in bed, I'd be laying there trying to fall asleep, and Coke would be all on my mind. I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd take a sip of water, and right after I took that first gulp, cocaine's the second thing on my fucking mind, man. Hydration is first, of course. Hydration is key, goddammit. But I don't think any drug has ever had a grasp on my brain quite like Coke did, you know? Like, Coke completely grabbed my cranium and just said, gimme that shit. I still, to this day, sometimes think about it. I went through my phases, and, you know, during my Xanax phase last year that I was talking about earlier, I also kind of got back into the Coke. It was a heavy drug binge. I was doing Coke, K, Xans. I still do acid here and there, but that's not something you really get addicted to. I feel like acid's a lot different, you know? Like, I've taken acid like twice in the past year, but Coke is just something that even to this day, I haven't done any since last summer, around the time I stopped the Xans, but I stopped the Xans a little later than the Coke. I haven't done Coke since like July of last summer, so a little while, but I still think about it all the time. It's been months, man, and it's probably going to be a year from now, and I'll still be thinking about blow all the time. It's rough. Those are probably the top 3 drugs that I either had a hard time quitting or just straight up couldn't quit. Weed in particular is something that I think will just be by my side forever. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. I know it's a little different than my normal ones. Let me know if you guys want to see more of this style content on the second channel in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, gamers.